Welcome, Wargamers, to the dank caves of Ulgu, because today we are talking about some very special little thick boys straight out of the Ogor Mawtribes book, and I've been so excited to talk about this because I was actually waiting to cover this lore topic specifically until I got the new 3rd edition tome. Because today we are talking about the Underguts Mawtribe, and this was requested by Rusted Branch. I believe it was in the comments of our Blister Skin exploration. And if you would like your question answered, go ahead and leave it in the comments down below, and please give this video a like. And so in this video, we're going to explore what the Ogor Mawtribes are, what makes then the Underguts, a sub-faction within Ogor Mawtribes, what makes them unique based on their environment, their peculiarities that might exist. We'll go through an exemplary battle as well as take any other bits of lore that are in the battle tome, and then just finish up the video answering the question, why is this cool? Why is this compelling? How does it fit into the greater story? What themes are at play? And we're going to jump right into that right after I shout out Not Just Gaming. If you like this video, you're interested in starting an Ogor Mawtribes army, or are looking for great supplies for your next hobby project, Not Just Gaming has an incredible store here in the US with up to 15% off just about anything that you would want. And every single time you use the link in my description, big or small, whether it's a thing of glue or a box of models, it goes directly to supporting me, my wife, our cats, all of it. Thank you so much to everyone who has used it already. Now, for those of you who are new to Age of Sigmar, or maybe just Games Workshop kind of fantasy archetypes, who are the Ogres? More specifically, the Ogor Mawtribes is the full name of the faction that is playable in Age of Sigmar. Who are they? Well, these are the giant humanoids that kind of just roam around in their various cult Mawtribes. It's sort of their term for warband or city structure. And really, their whole world is built upon a single idea. I'm really hangry. Their hunger is legendary. They just eat and consume. They are these giant titanic locusts in a sense. And they're not super picky about what or who they eat, except they don't tend to like eating each other. And like a handful of other creatures that are just a bit too gamey for them. And when I say that they're hungry, what I mean is that idea of just constant needing to feed has entirely shaped their worldview, their religious structure, their hierarchy. Tyrants are chosen, meaning the warlord of the war band is chosen by how much they can provide for the tribe to be able to eat off of, which is a really cool test of skill. And so when I say that they're hungry, it's not just like a meme level thing of like, oh, they're always chomping, like Theodore from the Chipmunks. But that hunger and the desire to devour things is a fundamental part of their society, their worldview, their currencies, everything. Now, like all destruction factions, they have some deep reflection in Gorka Morka. That is the god of destruction. And even though Gorka Morka is mostly represented as a twin-headed orc that can split into two orcs and then come back to one, they revere Gorka Morka in a way of seeing him as what's called the gulping god. In their mythology, Gorka Morka, even though he looks like he has green skin in a lot of stories, is depicted in numerous ways. And in many of those, it's not really about what he physically looks like, but it's the deeds he does that resonate with the Mawtribes. Drinking entire oceans, eating entire stampedes of cattle in one gulp, like that kind of stuff. And while they all have exhibited like similar behaviors, like they'll have a fort in the center of a region and then start kind of going on these hunting trips that are concentric rings going bigger and bigger, basically just looking for food, and when they fully exhaust the area, they'll go to a different place, kind of a thing. So there's like similarities between tribes that they seem to exhibit similar behaviors, but as we know, as different species go to different realms, like the realm of fire, the realm of, in this case, shadow, Ulgu, those realms always have an effect on the inhabitants within them. It begins to change little bits of your nature. If you're in the realm of fire, you're a little more impetuous, hot-headed. Well, if you're in the realm of shadow, it's about illusory magics, deception, guile. And so today's question, as we move from talking about Ogor Mawtribes in general to the Underguts specifically, what does that kind of magic do to a titanic eating machine just trying to go on about their lives? And we're going to start that with an exemplary battle. Like so many other powerful empires, the Dwarden underlords of Kazakh Fulgar are driven underground by the coming of the Dark God's legions. In their hidden cavern gun forts, they think themselves safe. But they do not anticipate the ferocity of another enemy, the Underguts. In a long and bloody war, the ogres sack the Dwarden's gun forts. During the fighting, the ogres learn to use the Underlord's greatest weapon against them, The Mawtribe has always made use of vast numbers of Noblars, and these diminutive tinkerers managed to create crude, unrefined blast powder by copying the Dwarden's methods. This volatile, deadly substance proves fascinating to the Underguts, who delight in the cacophonous explosions it causes and the taste of the charred, splattered flesh it leaves in its wake. The Underlords are devoured as the ogres blast great holes in their fortification and sweep in to overwhelm the day's defenders. The Underguts claim Kazakh Fulgar as their gluthold, renaming it Mount Bellow for the thunderous explosions that rumble through its cavernous depths. Thrilled by their conquest, if now a bit deafened, the Mawtribe's warriors daub the image of the mountain proudly upon gutplate and flesh alike. All through the Age of Chaos, the Underguts journey along an ever-expanding maw path. Unlike the majority of their fellow Mawtribes, the ogres do not travel by land, but instead burrow their way through the bowels of the realms using cannon fire and explosive barrels, chewing their way through piles of rock and debris left behind. More than once, such crude demolition work causes a rockfall that squashes hundreds of Noblars, yet overall this unexpectedly straightforward tactic makes hunting the pallid abominations that are the ogre's prime food source far easier. That story was Explosive Evolution, straight out of the 3.0 Battle Tome from their timeline section. And let's kind of break that down a little bit. So we got this first glimpse of the Underguts and how they kind of come into a situation. There's a whole bunch of dwarves thinking, Age of Chaos, not going to bother us. Why? Because we got cannons pointed at these cannons, and no one's going to touch our cannons because we're underground. Brilliant. But, the mortal realms being as dangerous as they are, it's always the enemy they don't anticipate that ends up being the one that destroys them, and of course, who is looking underground for a giant tribe of ogres? Now, one thing here is interesting to me is that they're called the Underguts beforehand, but this seems to be the seminal battle where the Noblars learned to make gunpowder. So are they just random cave dwelling and they had to claw and very slowly move? Totally possible. I'm just kind of curious as to what they rocked up to this battle with, if it was during this long battle that they kind of became what we know them as. And so let's talk about these Noblars reverse engineering, quote-unquote, gunpowder. This is an immediate advantage that they have that, destruction armies just generally don't. For a lot of these, they have to ransack, the goods of other forces of order to get gunpowder. It's a very precious resource within their society. And to say that the Noblars learned it, I think, is sort of a wink in the wrong direction of, I don't think they learned how to make gunpowder. I think they learned how to do a step-by-step process, but have no clue what they're actually doing. They're just I saw this stunty guy put this chemical in, and then he added a little bit of this, and they don't know the proportion. So it's all this, it's terrible gunpowder. But as long as it goes boom, and it makes the big ogres happy, it is a successful batch. But I love the mad scientist idea of you don't know what any of this crap is, but you're just mixing stuff into vials and it's turning colors, and all of a sudden, bada bing, bada boom, we got gunpowder for days. And this is what really makes their way of life, I think, more meaningfully possible, is just the ability to go out underground. It's Ulgu, Realm of Shadow, so I expect there to be a lot of caverns and stalactite and stalagmite, kind of openings within the earth that they can travel through. I don't think they're necessarily blasting every single square inch, because that's super hard. Seattle's been at it for quite a while. But I like the origin story quite a bit. Now, what's interesting though is that I went over to the Underguts page here in the 3.0 Battle Tome, and it just doesn't give me the same vibe. The story that we got was them kind of coming out and being very oh, this is awesome, things are blowing up, and everyone's kind of going deaf. It just sounds like they're having a great time at a metal concert / dark cave fireworks show. They're having a blast, pun intended. But then when you go to their actual lore section, I think this really highlights less so what they're like in battle, but more what they're like day to day when you first encounter them. Because it focuses a lot more on what the realm does to them over time. So when you see a member of the Underguts Mawtribe, rather than being these tough-skinned, tanned, massive hulks of flesh, they're still big, of course they are, but their skin is much more sickly and pallid. They have a very kind of gross appearance about them. They kind of go from a pale white to a necrotic greenish, and they're all drooling. All of them universally, their eyes are just kind of glazed over, they're drooling. However, the reason for this is because the things that they eat in their environment, the huge bugs and all kinds of gross creatures that habitate the caves, make slime and stuff, they eat them so much that it has an effect on their bodies. So if they eat a lot of poisonous animals, all of a sudden their drool is like dangerous to get into a wound. It becomes like a poison. And as they're just walking through these cave systems, eating anything around them, again, no sunlight, so that's why they're getting all nasty and pale looking, and then they stumble upon, say, a town or an outpost that seems to be very plentiful in the era of the beast, as is pointed out in the book, and a meal presents itself. And oftentimes what they'll do is simply do like this awesome action movie scene where they blow like a ring around the fortification and just kind of drop the whole thing down and just start attacking and eating them. Like they bring things down to them, which is so horrifying. I mean, of course, they'll go up in the air every once in a while if they need to come out and strike stuff, but the idea of like, you can't possibly perceive us coming. Like, obviously the ground can shake and stuff like that on their approach, but no one really knows what is happening. You certainly would not first go to, there's a whole tribe of ogres underneath our feet. That's ridiculous. Now, a few things that this section also points out is they have the most lead belchers kind of like per capita, if you will. It's sort of like their unique selling proposition. I'm sure that other Mawtribes have lead belchers, like the actual cannons and stuff like that. But without a steady supply of gunpowder, sometimes those units are lead belchers and sometimes they're, I don't know, tyrant guard or something. Like they have to pick up a different weapon because there's no gunpowder. But for the Underguts, where their Noblars have found some way to kind of make a crude replacement, at least for gunpowder, approximation if you will, well, any cannons that they collect that are still in working order are lead belcher units just by definition. And they love the explosion. I think that's definitely an aspect that is played up more in the story than in their actual lore section. Is just, it would be so cool if you're in a giant metal fort underground in what I assume is a larger cavern. You start launching stuff, it's going to be peeling off of like metal walls, and then it's going to bounce around internally, and then like a drum hit the side of the cave wall. There would be so much noise and light. That sounds so rad. So they kind of definitely sound like a death metal, I don't know, Ogor Mawtribe, just for the sheer intensity of audio, I don't know, blasts. With that all said, let's start moving into why are the Underguts a really cool sub-faction within the Mawtribes. I think they really point out the variety of ways that hunger can be identified. So in some aspects, with other Mawtribes specifically being out and about, or being in specifically frozen winter areas, or maybe there's the Everwinter following them, the Underguts are unique because their version of hunger is kind of combined with the use of stealth and guile to get your opponent. There's almost a hunter aspect of, I'm hunting you. Of course, it's from underground. It's a subterranean hunt, which is its own kind of awesome. But here's the thing. Even if they went up above ground, it's the realm of shadows. The way we've described it before is you literally can't trust your own eyes. If you see a mountain and you start walking towards it, the mountain will start to move to the left or to the right to start and pull you off course. Like it's just doing strange, illusionary things to you. So in a realm where you can't trust anything you see anyway, maybe the most trustworthy path is the one that you carve yourself. And that's such a neat, I guess, way to bring unique flavor to the realm of shadows specifically. And then the Mawtribe that's in there. Now, what I like about Age of Sigmar lore is that, there's going to be some book later on that has like a Hessian scholar be like, seems to be a lot of volcanic activity in this area, like not realizing he's looking at the concentric rings of a maw path. I think that would be hilarious. Other things that are noted here that I do want to point out that I like is that they seem to be good friends with the Gloomspite Gits, which just makes sense. I mean, they're cohabitating a lot of the same environments, and they would probably be familiar with a lot of their flora and fauna just by living in the same cave systems. I'm sure they've seen squigs or something like that before as well. And I really love the idea of a Gloomspite Gits army determining where they think the bad moon's going to be and then hiring a mercenary company of Underguts to dig them the tunnel and be like, listen, you can have all the food you want. In fact, when you open the tunnel, it's going to be like rife with all kinds of good mushrooms to eat. Just go nuts. Knowing in their minds that this is going to unleash absolute hell, and the ogres are probably not going to be super jazzed about, having growths come out of them and stuff. Or they might love it. I don't know. I'm not here to judge. But anyway, Rusted Branch, thank you so much for leaving a comment and letting me know what you want to talk about. And if you have a sub-faction or a character or something like that you would like explored, please leave in the comments down below. like and share the video because it really does help me as a content creator. Thank you for watching and listening, and I will catch you in my next Age of Sigmar lore video. Happy wargaming.